Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sloppy Lab. I am JT Russell, and if you're confused about the night, it is Wednesday. Yesterday we had 3,457 ducks flooding the recording studio, but no worries, we have our own Pied Piper of a sort. Drew them out quickly. It is Quickdraw 3457 here with me this evening. Hello, Quickdraw.
Hey, happy Tuesday. I mean Wednesday. Good to be back.
Happy Tuesday, Wednesday. And we have a very special guest with us this evening. Would you like to tell all the fine folks in the chat, in the airwaves, who we have with us this evening? Or afternoon/evening, where they are, I suppose?
Yeah, this is AV8R from Team Ancient Bear Republic, ABR, and also take that Smarty Pants on various places. And I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
The pleasure
Pretty stoked to
is
have you.
ours. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about this for a long time, so happy we could get this squared away and get you on here and get some new insight from you.
Yeah, this is sweet. I think we were also realizing before, like, this is what an opportunity to have some notable community members come on, especially ones that are known for various artifacts. This is a double-sided artifact episode, and Aviator Andrew is absolutely the person who comes to mind for this particular artifact, at least for me.
I'm glad. I don't know. I think notorious might be the right word, especially with this artifact.
These are always my favorite episodes, and we've had a few guests on for the double-sided ones, and it's always really good to have like someone on who has lots of experience playing with the card. If I tried to talk about Gambling Den, people would realize that I'm a fraud pretty quickly. So, got to get the expert witnesses in here.
Absolutely. So yeah, welcome. Super excited. I don't know. I guess maybe one shopkeeping note before we get going with content too, and we would be remiss not to mention this with an Ancient Bear on air with us too. But the signups for season 9, I believe, are up right now. So if you haven't yet, definitely get yourself on over to the ABR Discord and sign yourself up for season 9. Yeah.
Yes, everyone should do that.
You guys both captains again?
Yeah.
They haven't kicked me out yet. They made a mistake one season. I'm holding on.
Yep. No, it's kind of amazing. Like, I'll just say, the captain's chat is a fun spot, and all really nice people. So I think if you join the league, there's I think 0% chance of you getting paired with a captain that's not awesome and fun. So even I don't know, I'm counting myself in there, but certainly for everybody else, I would say those nice things about them. So
yeah, absolutely. It's a great group. A lot of faces that folks will recognize from around the community, and all super awesome ambassadors of the game. I'll put myself at the bottom of that list, but as a fine group of folks. I have actually, I guess by way of icebreaker, maybe for the folks who. For the one listener who knows us but not you, so this is for you, Mom. What's your favorite ABR format? So when you're like, all right, ABR season, I'm jazzed for this format.
I get really excited about adaptive, which it's kind of a shame I missed out on this season of the Kagi League, but I love the balance in adaptive and the experience of testing your metal on a relatively fair playing field. It really is about what you can learn, and even what you can learn from the other player as you're going through the match. So I really love adaptive.
I'm right there with you. Huge fan. I'm sorry you missed out on Kagi this year. It's off to a good start.
Total shark.
Everyone in Kagi's a shark. I mean,
it's true. Yeah,
it's such a strong leg.
Yeah, it really is. That's interesting. I don't know. I guess I wasn't sure what format I expected, but interesting to hear. Yeah, that's a good one. A good one. So cool. Yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to the season. Definitely get to sign up, folks. So yeah, this evening though, we are talking about maybe an artifact that is interesting in an adaptive setting. Maybe certainly a skill testing double-sided artifact, I would say. Though maybe Maybe the fine folks here would disagree with me. But we are obviously talking about Gambling Den, the old Gambling Den. I don't know, Aviator, would you like to do the honors of telling us what this thing does?
Sure. Gambling Den is an artifact with an amber pip on it, and it says that at the start of each player's turn, they may name a house and then reveal the top card of their deck. If it is a card of the house that they named, then they gain 2 amber. Otherwise, they lose 2 amber.
Okay, there you have it. There you have it.
Pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing much to think about here. Just always go for it, right? That's the strategy.
Never tell me the odds.
Never tell me the odds. Well, I guess that's an interesting question. I don't know if we want to go right there. Maybe this will be a cool one to start with, right? And then we'll circle back at the end and see if any minds have been changed. I know my position on Gambling Den right at this moment. In general, like it depends is like the like stereotypical tech guy answer, and we've got a couple of those, so I don't know. But all right, we're throwing away the it depends. You've got to go with a hot take or a position. So, Aviator, what's your Gambling Den position?
When in doubt, go for it. But that's obviously the wrong answer.
I don't even have an answer for the question because I'll have a story to tell later in the episode after we talk about it a bit more. But I am pretty much lost right now with this card, and I have an idea of what I want to do, but I want to talk about it a little bit first, and then kind of share my recent experience and where I think I may have went wrong with it.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with the chat here. Gambling Den is only optional if you are a coward. Yeah, it's
fair.
Okay, I'm gonna walk that back just a little bit. I'm almost always going for it unless I'm risking forging. How about that? Almost always going for it unless I'm risking forging. Almost.
So actually, I guess if I were to give, can I give my it depends answer?
Give the it depends answer, please. Yeah.
Okay. So I think actually the biggest question for me is what kind of game I'm playing. If I am playing, I love to play blind sealed. Mark H and I very often, will just open decks. Sometimes with my daughter, we'll open decks, sit down and play. And if somebody gets a gambling den to the table, I am gambling every time because it's fun. That's what we're there to do. And it just makes for wild, wacky games. If I'm playing competitive, then it really depends. And I would say probably not call it, not do it more often than not, which sounds horrible to say. I guess I am a coward, but I think, the odds are that not taking the situation into account, your odds of getting it right are 1 out of 3. And that's bad odds. So 2 out of 3 times it will not help you win. And so it's better not to do it. Now, the situation, there's a lot of situational stuff that should move that slider around. But actually, I think in competitive, the baseline assumption is 2/3 of the time it's going to hurt me. I shouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then is there a percentage that you would say all else equal? Yeah, I'm going to go for it. Is it like 40%? Is it 45%? Or does it have to be above 50 before you're like, yep, I'm just doing it?
So if I'm threatening a key, if I'm at 4 amber, let's say, then I'm more likely to do it with poor odds, even with 1/3, right? Because heck, why not? The upside is very large if it can make you forge a key. Forging a key is worth a lot more than 6 amber, even, I would say. So, so if that's on the table, then I would lean toward do it. If I'm already about to forge a key and this could potentially take me off of that, then I'm really going to be really reluctant. It's going to have to be much better than 50%. And once you're down to, obviously at 0 amber, you might as well. If you're at 1 amber, then the upside is twice as good as the downside. So that should that should flip you in the direction of probably doing it. So that, like I said, there's just, I think, a lot to take into account. If we can come back to this idea, but if there's scaling amber control and it can possibly get me to sneak out a key, then I'm even further in the direction of just do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when you're talking about like if you have one amber, for example, that benefits better, then you start thinking about expected value out of this, right? Do you ever do like some math equations in your head when you're doing this? Like, I have a
I'm not
38%
that
chance to get
smart.
this right. My expected value here is 1.5. Uh, I mean, I bet you could if you like,
Yeah,
familiarize yourself with the equations, you'd always know what your expected value is out of it.
yeah, and I think I have, like, I guess I would say from a broad perspective, I thought that through. I totally agree with you on that. But in terms of like actually, doing some kind of hedonic calculus in the moment and coming up with a number, yeah, I'm not that vast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the EV equations of this are not like super complicated, right? But what's complicated, and this is where my position comes from, is like amber at the start of your turn is just way more valuable in general than amber at the end of your turn, right?
Mm-hmm,
Like
mm-hmm.
there's a reason why we play cards like Key Charge, and even that's gone on a journey. Like there was a time when we were like, why would we forge for 7 when I can forge for 6 at the start of my turn? Um, and like yeah, having 2 extra amber at the start of your turn is often just way more valuable than 2 amber at the end. And things like scaling amber control, things like how much amber you can generate in that turn, definitely play into this decision. So too, things like how much amber control am I facing, right? If it's a really grindy matchup, or if it's reversal changes this entirely too. If I'm just like not generating amber, I'm maybe even more risk averse in that situation, right? Or I mean, I don't know. It depends, and that's gonna be really interesting to dig
Yeah,
into for sure. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Even where you're at in the game, right? If you're sitting on 2 keys and I'm sitting on 1, then uh, okay, we can say the expected value, right? The expected value of doing nothing is I'm going to lose,
Right.
and so the downside of getting it wrong then becomes essentially nil because I would lose anyway, and uh, so then it becomes worth it to push for the upside. Of course, you can get into thinking that when it's not true and really wreck yourself. So you got to be careful.
And then on the flip side, if you are ahead like 2-0, you're probably less likely to do it, right? Because you just don't want to, fumble the situation.
You would think that. I think the problem is that's the logical way. Emotionally, being ahead, I feel like, hey, what could go wrong?
Go
So
for the kill, go for the shutout, get a longer break between rounds, things like that.
yes,
Yeah. It is interesting though. I think there definitely becomes a point when you're ahead that playing Gambling Den is not a good play. Like it becomes a discard. Like I've faced opponents who have played Gambling Dens, and I've suddenly gone from an almost surely losing position to okay, maybe a few flips go my way, and I'm like back in this game, you know.
yeah,
And you get into those situations where okay, the odds are poor, the expected value is low, but it's better than passing on the opportunity and surely losing, kind of like what you were saying, right?
hmm
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
So it
Interesting.
definitely like speeds up the game as we're talking about it. I think you were estimating like if at a normal game, you go through your deck 1.5 times. With Gambling 10 out early on, you might only go through your deck like slightly over 1 time during that game, right?
yeah. I think one of the one of the things to look for in any, I think really in any double-sided artifact, but certainly in the case of Gambling Den, is if it changes the game in a significant enough way that your opponent's deck won't play the way that they thought it would. Can be a really big value. And again, I think if the odds are only 1/3 of the time will somebody get amber, okay, that's we need to adjust for that. But if you're in a situation where people are hitting it, and so it is generating amber, yeah, it gets you to the game one way or the other a little bit quicker. And for someone who was really counting on digging for certain tools, if the game stays slow, they have the opportunity to dig through, get to the tools they need, get them in their archives, whatever. If the game goes, let's say 20% faster, well, they're less likely to get all the tools they thought they were gonna, and maybe their deck doesn't quite do what they thought. And I think um, I've definitely been in a lot of situations, both on the receiving end and the delivering end, where somebody gets to the end of the game and feels like, wow, my deck didn't do what it usually does. My deck didn't. It just I got unlucky and it didn't fire off. I've said or more often felt like saying those words, and then if I've said them sometimes, though I have to confess. But if you do some evaluation after the fact, oftentimes you can realize, okay, it felt that way, but in reality, here's the things that were happening that led to my deck not performing the way I'm used to. And if you can get somebody into a situation where it's the game plays different than they thought and they don't adjust, then that's an opening, right? That's an opening to possibly get a win.
Yeah, and just a sidebar. I love that you're like you admit like sure I've had those moments too where I say I just got super unlucky, but then you have to look back at the game, and I love that you do that. And I think more people need to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have a game where you feel like you just got outdrawn by your opponent, sometimes that happens. Maybe that's true, but you should always look back and say like, why did I not draw as well as I like? Is there something I could have done differently? And I
Mm-hmm.
just think it's super important to call that out, and it's really good to do that and just kind of recognize that it's not always just bad luck, and especially
Yeah.
not just with gambling done decks, but with anything. There's always something you could have done a little bit differently that maybe if you held a card for one turn or you only played the house with two instead of three in hand, you would have seen an extra card. Like there's all these things, and I think as players, it just is a disservice to ourselves if you don't try to think about those situations and try to learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
My working assumption after every game is that if I won, it was luck, and if I lost, I did something wrong. And I think at least that's the starting point. That's the starting point. Yeah, I don't know. At least for if your ego can and handle such a such a thought process, then it can make for some learning moments. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if your goal is to win more, then it's a good practice, because but more analysis is not gonna hurt you. And I've even asked other players after they trounce me, uh, hey, I felt like maybe I did this wrong, but really I didn't feel like there was much room. Did you notice anything? And I've had people point out some things that I was totally overlooking, and they probably wouldn't have said anything if I didn't ask. So yeah, I think if you, like you said, if you can, you really have to put yourself in the right space to handle it, but it can be very valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I missed the Crucible Tracker for that reason.
Yeah.
We've talked about that on this show before.
Well, and I really, I will plug our team, but I really like the fact that we have a lot of folks spectating each other's games, and not only that, but most of the folks, all the folks, I mean, are very receptive to feedback and actively looking for it. So it's never like, oh, that wasn't what happened, like grumble, 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 but it's like, okay, I'll think on that, like good feedback or whatever, good notes. So if you can get those notes and if you can be receptive to it, like super valuable, super valuable.
Yeah.
So how about some situations with Gambling Den where it's a sure thing? You have one card in deck, or you maybe how often do you consider like you reveal with Gambling Den and you take your entire turn and you intentionally don't play any cards just so you can have that benefit next turn? How often does that come up?
Rarely, but I have a strong bias towards playing cards and not holding them, which has that actually was one of the feedbacks I got recently from somebody who had just finished plastering me to the wall. So, but I think if you get into a situation where players are able to generate amber off the Gambling Den, if you brought a deck that where playing cards isn't giving you better value than 2 amber, you didn't bring a competitive deck. I think maybe not in every situation, but in most cases, playing the cards ought to be giving you better value than that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if you have a big board and you're like, hey, I can reap for 5 and then gamble for 2, and not play a card. Maybe that can work out, but usually playing cards is gonna actually generate higher value, I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
And kind of I guess a follow on to that is you have to push through that turn at some point. That's the less than 2 amber value turn to get
Yeah.
to a more valuable turn, right? So if you start down that path, you're not avoiding that bad turn, or at least, or maybe you're gonna ride the 2 amber train forever. I don't know. Yeah, interesting.
It's a slow train.
Slow train.
It would be, if I'm not mistaken, 9 turns to get enough. No. Yeah, 9 turns to get enough amber for 3 keys if they don't do anything to you.
Right.
If they do not.
And you're not.
That's a big if.
Yeah, that's a big if, and you're not playing cards to take them off. So like they could just play cards and gain more than 2 a turn, and you're behind in the race.
Although I
Yeah.
guess we'll get to double gambling dens later, I suppose. But I have a funny aside to that is my brother in one sealed Vault Tour played a gambling den on his turn 1, and the opponent played a gambling den on their turn 1, and they both kind of looked at each other like, who's gonna play?
And how many turns did that game last?
Let's see. What was half a 9? 4.5. 4.5.
Yeah.
That's a quick sealed game. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So funny.
Well, double changes the math. If you have two
Double
of them,
changes the math
Candle
for
Holder
sure.
does. I mean, then you literally do it every single time.
Yes.
Because if you're wrong the first guess, then you can probably figure out what's on top for the next guess.
Don't be wrong twice.
You hope you can remember it for that.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Long.
And if not, that's what the TCO log is
second.
for.
No, if
Right.
they just grafted you and you're at 10, it's like, I'm gonna whiff. Let's go.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
That would be super cool.
Done it.
Oh,
Yeah.
later on.
Yeah. Okay. Is this a good time to talk about Candle Holder a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So Candle Holder has 2 gambling dens, and that's weird. There are other decks with 2 gambling dens. I've never seen another deck that plays quite the way that Candle Holder does. But the basis of, well, the gambling den part of this is if you get the 2 down, then it changes the math, like you said, quick draw from either -2 or +2 to 0 or 4. Or if you're at 0 or 1, then it's even better, right? It's always going to be positive. So that will speed the game up. And that's an interesting thing. I'll come back to that in a second. But when you're playing against scaling amber control, it can do some very interesting things. For one thing, it makes too much to protect and interdimensional graft just much less valuable, because on the interdimensional graft side, we'll talk about that first. If I'm at 8, then yeah, I might as well gamble hoping to lose, drop back down to 6, and if I get it wrong, oh well. If I accidentally get it right, I guess I should say, and go to 10, I can go right back down to 8, nothing lost. But probably I can get myself down to 6 and just not call the second. So I end up giving my opponent less amber. So there's some interesting play there. And against a card like Too Much to Protect, it's really brutal because you can burst from 2 to Forging. And so Too Much to Protect just never has a chance to do anything. And so there's whole categories of deck that where their key card becomes meaningless with 2 gambling dens on the table. Now, obviously, things can go wrong. They could also generate 4 amber per turn and just win that way. And in Candle Holder specifically, the answer to that is the Anthony's, because if you can drop your opponent to 1 amber, they can't burst to 6 at the start of their turn. And so you make the game significantly shorter because you're getting, you're getting 2 to 4 amber a turn, or you're getting a lot of amber. Uh, so you make the game a lot shorter, and you have a way to uh, put the brakes on the opponent. And once you're, even if they kill the Anthony's at the point where you're on check for key 3 and they have 30 amber in their pool, it just it doesn't matter unless they're holding 3 miasmas, which some people play those triple miasma decks, and that then, oh well, what can you do?
This is it's really good because obviously in Candleholder you have the 3 Stirring Graves, but you also have the Val Jericho, which makes it possible to lose your first Anthony, play the second one, and then archive the first one again to do
Yeah,
it over again next turn.
yeah, you know the secret.
Mm-hmm.
I've
Mm-hmm.
watched a couple games against it, yeah,
Yeah.
from my teammates. Like JT said, we watch each other's games quite a lot, so
Yep.
I have seen this one in action before.
This might be one of the decks that I've piloted most in prep matches for things like swindle team events and other
Uh-huh.
such games. Yeah, I've played. I don't know if I've played with Quick Draw, but definitely with Not Tonight, we've played some games. I think you've played some,
Hmm.
and I might be mixing up some ABR folks, but the Bullet Bills, that was
Oh
yourself,
yeah, that was us. Yep.
yourself, Mark H, and Donut's dad, right?
Hmm.
And
Yep.
I realized very belatedly, but Bill's brother-in-laws?
Yeah. Yeah. Our my wife, Mark's wife, and Donut's dad's wife are sisters. I was
And
very
then
careful how to construct that sentence because it's very easy to construct the sentence in a, you know,
well, I don't know if how often you listen to this podcast, but we actually talk about Mario Kart quite a lot.
okay.
And I talked to Mark one time about the name, and I was like, "Oh, it's really cool. It's a Mario Kart named." And he explained to me
Uh-huh.
what like the BILs meant, and just the Mario Kart theme like always comes back in this game.
Yeah. Well, there are some good rubber band mechanics in Keyforge for sure. What are the other Mario Kart theme elements though?
Oh, it's really about like the structure of the game. It's a racing game. Keyforge
Yeah.
is. You
Okay.
have 3 laps, 3 keys, and then a lot of the rubber band stuff you talk about, like you have the blue shell, and then you have like the too much to protect,
Yeah.
and you have like some defensive items. It, there's just so many parallels you can draw. And I think last week we were talking about, in Mario Kart you have like heavyweights and you have lightweights, and we're talking about it in terms of archetypes in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
some decks like to just go at a really fast top speed, but it takes them a little bit of time to get going. Other decks have
Uh-huh.
like really good handling and control, just like you might have with like a middleweight. So,
Uh-huh.
um, yeah, I love talking
Wow.
about it. I'm a huge Mario Kart fan.
Yeah, that's
See,
deep.
like it is deep. Like there's something to it. Like the makers of
Yeah.
KeyForge, Richard Garfield is probably a huge Mario Kart fan. That's my theory.
Hmm. Hmm.
They nailed the
I'm with
racing
you.
kind of dynamic. Yeah, for sure. It really does. It really does translate really well. Interesting.
Hmm.
What?
So is
So what?
gambling den one of those glitch shortcuts then?
Yeah, something like that. I'm trying to think what else. What
Like
else
if you
is
go for the
gambly?
shortcut, you have a chance of missing it and hitting the wall, and you're
Hmm.
just like stumbling to catch back up again.
Right.
So I think it's a shortcut.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We settled it.
So what's a rubber band? I'm exposing myself as Mario Kart
Oh,
noob. Yeah.
no. It's I think Rubber Band is like a I guess a game design. Uh, I don't know how it's not like a technical term, but it's a catch-up mechanism, right?
Catch up
It's a
mechanism.
way
Oh. Hmm.
to make it easier for the so the blue shell is the probably the most used example, right? You're losing, but hey, here's this way that you can really wreck specifically the person in front, so that now you have a chance
Mm.
to catch up to them.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And the further you are back in Mario Kart, the better your items are going to be. So that's kind of like the rubber band part of it too, where you're you're more likely to get an item that's going to make an impact to let you make up some ground and catch up. And so Keyboard doesn't really have that naturally, but there are cards like that, like
Hmm.
TMTP and Graft, and I think probably some board wipes could maybe fall into that category too,
Yeah.
especially if you have like your deck is kind of built around it. So,
Whereas if you're in the front, it's all green shells and bananas all day long.
yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna take y'all's word on it. I don't know.
I'm so glad that we have a Mario Kart fan on the show finally.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll be, you know.
No, you got to stay. You're the producer.
Yeah. It's okay. You can learn.
I'm learning. It's good. Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna try to get us back on track here. Another Mario Kart reference. So AV8R, you're talking about a bit of a difference in how you would play Gambling Den in person or online.
Hmm. Yeah. So the well, you were mentioning the stats, and I certainly don't calculate all the stats, but I do like to count. Hey, what do I have available? So if I'm playing Gambling Den, it's hard because usually on my opponent's turn, I want to be paying attention to everything they're doing. But with Gambling Den on the table, I want to know, how many cards from each house are left in my deck. And so that means, what do I have on the table? What's in my hand? What's in my archives? What's in the discard? 3 times. You do it 2 times, or no, you really have to do it 3 times. And anyway, so constantly checking that. Well, in person, that's actually a lot of work. Whereas on TCO, you can just click your deck and see what cards are left in the deck. Obviously, it's not showing you in order. That would be too strong. But I can see, I have 8 discards and 4 Star Alliance and 5 Shadows. So I know that. Did I do the math right? I know that I have like a slightly less than 50% chance if I call Dis, and a much worse chance than that if I call something else. So you can calculate that very quickly, whereas in person it's a lot more work.
Are you worried? I don't know how often you've played in person in the last few years. I have unfortunately not played too much in person. Hoping to change that soon, but I have a fear that if I ever, like when I go back to playing in person again, at some point during the game, I'm just going to pick up my deck and look at it, count cards, and then shuffle it up, put it back.
So Mark H organized the SoCal Keyforge Spectacular, and we were on stream. I had 1 card left in my deck, and I picked it up and I looked at it, and as far as I know, I don't even know if anybody was watching the stream, but I caught myself, and I had to call him over and be like, I did this, like I didn't gain any information that I couldn't have derived, but obviously that's completely unacceptable, and how do we fix it? And we ended up, okay, well, I didn't gain any information, so there's nothing. We didn't do anything, but he said if I did it again, he'd DQ me. So, which was fair. But yeah, so I did make that mistake in person, and luckily caught myself and turned myself in, but it did not feel good.
No, yeah, I can imagine. It almost makes you wish that TCO just didn't let you look at your deck, just let you figure it out. But I understand why it lets you, because how much time can we spend like counting cards in your discard and seeing what's left in your deck and things like that? Like online, it does speed it up a bit. Just like you said, you're not getting information.
Yeah, and there's I mean, this is a whole other tangent, but I know one way to think about this is TCO is like for doing quick iteration on I want to, I want to play 30 games. Well, I can play 30 games on TCO way faster than I can play 30 games in real life. But there's no substitute for the IRL practice for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I almost look at them as different, almost different. I don't want to say different game, but like a different, like competitive REL or something. Like you obviously have the chat there. You have, so you're able, like, it's not, oh wait, what did I reveal on Gambling Den last turn? I'll just scroll up, as opposed to like, let me rack my brain and try and remember. So there's a whole lot of that. I don't know. It would be interesting to go down at some point, what are the differences and how many of them are like, yes, convenience, but convenience enough to be like a material difference, things like Gambling Den, like, I don't know, if you were waiting till your turn to start counting, would that be considered slow play in an IRL setting? I think some judges probably would argue, like, yeah, it is, depending on how much time it was taking you. So
Yeah.
it's interesting, right? It's really interesting. Yeah.
Right. And that's well, this is another tangent, but I certainly feel like, especially if I'm bringing the cards that can play slow, it's on me to make sure that I'm
Mm-hmm.
not playing them slow, right? If my opponent brings a slow card, and there's certain cards that just can slow the game down. If my opponent is bringing that, and I'm having to think hard about it, and that slows the game down a little bit, I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. But I don't. If I'm bringing it, then I want to make sure I'm well practiced enough to play it quickly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you end up making a dumb mistake, like looking at your deck.
Well, like you said, you turn yourself in, so I think you're forgiven
Yeah,
by all involved.
yeah. Thanks.
So, so I have my little story then now about my experience with Gambling Den recently. You had mentioned it possibly being a good adaptive card to
Hmm.
bring. My first Kage match of the season, my opponent brought a double Gambling Den deck, and it was a decent deck. It had tons and tons and tons of creature control, and it happened to have two Gambling Dens as well. I was playing a Dark Tidings deck. It was fairly rushy, and I kind of went with what I'd always done with Gambling Den, which was to check the odds that I have, and if there was one house that was more common than each of the other two, so if it was like essentially like 35, 40% or better, I would go for it. And I ended up losing 9 out of 10 of my Gambling Dens that game. Some of them when I had zero amber, but a lot of them when I did not. I lost a lot
Uh-huh.
of amber that game. And I forget the final of the game. I think it was 3 keys, and I may have forged like a meaningless second key, something like that.
Hmm.
But it got me thinking that if I had just not used it at all the entire game, I would have probably won. And
Uh-huh.
so that's what started to get me to rethink this. Like, I shouldn't have gambled if I was just like at 40 or 45%, but I
Uh-huh.
also need to do a better job of recognizing when my deck is at an advantage and when I need to
Mm.
take that risk. And that's not something that I had considered before. And we actually mentioned a week ago on this show about the Who's the Beatdown article. Are you familiar with it from the
Hmm. Hmm.
Magic?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had to reread it this week again in light of, this episode and what happened with my Kage match, and I had to just really think like I need to do a better job recognizing like I could have won that game maybe had I not done the gambling. I ended
Hmm.
up losing game two as well. I just went 0-2 in that adaptive match. And
Hmm.
I like you were saying earlier, like, you could just say, oh, it was just bad luck. But then I was like, no, I need to think about like what could I have done differently? And it
Hmm.
definitely made me think that I could have recognized maybe my deck was advantaged. Maybe I shouldn't have gambled at all. And
Hmm.
so have you ever had that thought? Like to go into a game thinking like I am a heavy favorite in this and I do not need to gamble, and so I'm
Mm.
not going to.
I have not thought about it that way before, but can I try to say it back to you and make sure that I'm
Yeah.
picking up the concept right?
Yeah.
So you're saying that if well, first of all, that in hindsight, if you had not gambled, you likely would have won. But also that there was enough information in the deck lists for you to have made the determination, even if he's winning the gamble, let's say 3/4 of the time, if I don't gamble, I'll still win. And you probably could have known that ahead of time.
Theoretically,
And mhm,
that's the gist of it. But yeah, it takes I
yeah,
think a lot of skill to just look at two lists and say
yeah,
I can win for that. But I do think that you can recognize just based on how many pips they have, how fast the deck looks in general. You can recognize like, okay, I'm expected to win this game if we just play our pips and go for it. So you may not be able to calculate, look, okay, like if they win 75%, like you said, like you may not be able to look that deep into it, but I do think that there's some skill to be
hmm,
gained here just by thinking about it more like, am I the beatdown here in this game,
hmm,
or is my opponent?
hmm. So I have another deck that is two copies of a rare double-sided artifact. It's two Soul Snatchers, and
I might know which deck you're talking about.
and a
I do know.
Crassosaurus.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. So that deck was from a good friend who he opened it and was playing it for a long time, and then he gifted it to me. And when he did, he said, "Never play the Soul Snatchers into a Coda deck." And I have not always listened, and every time I've not listened, I've been like, he was totally right. Obviously, that's not true 100% of the time, but he was recognizing there's something in the mix of cards, that show up in a Coda deck that tends to take better advantage of that than I'm going to be able to do. And anyway, yeah. So yeah, there's definitely a value in being able to read and say, okay, this is not the time to do this.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember this, but you played that double Soul Snatcher deck against me in the Kagi Top Cut.
Okay.
A couple seasons ago.
Sounds right.
I love that deck. That deck made me like really look into Soul Snatcher because I was like, that looks like a blast. I didn't have any scaling Amber Control in my deck except for a Submersive Principle, but I did. I think I ended up doing some kind of a final analysis Data Forge walk off or something like that. But yeah, because like with the Soul Snatchers in the final analysis, it was insane. So
yeah, that's funny. Yeah, you could do a lot there, and that's another that actually playing that deck was what made me excited when I saw Candleholder, because again, I actually think those two decks are the most of whatever it is that's going on there. I haven't found other decks that do it in that magnitude. It's just a very weird way to play, but fun.
It's two very cool decks.
Oh yeah, I want to say that double Soul Snatcher one was also perhaps in your Swindle lineup, because I feel like it's one that I may have tested with at some point too. Maybe
I think we used it for Swindle team events.
Mm-hmm.
For one of them, was there like a Team Moirai?
I think
I'm probably butchering that word.
I think you're right. It was either Moirai or I'm blanking. I'll have to double check.
Yeah, and I think if I'm remembering right too, you guys, we faced you in like round robin, and then like had to face you again in the bracket. And
yep.
I am blaming that on luck.
Just like all of our losses. Yeah.
Right.
Like all the losses.
Funny. Oh, so the Coda. So what is that like? I don't know. All their creatures are witches, and they don't care about your board. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's Coda Rush, and even Dis in Coda and AOA, but especially in Coda, you have the Dust Imp, and so it's a very there's a lot of very rushy Coda decks.
It does that. Right on. Oh, you need I guess you need like one more like niche double artifact deck to add to the trifecta.
I have it.
You have it.
Yeah. I'll yeah. It's double Curia. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. I knew you guys would be on that too. Although I don't think I have. I mean, double Curia is obviously like a very different game, and I don't think I have like I think there are double Curia decks that are a lot better than the one I have. But yeah, that maybe that's on my bucket list now, getting a better double Curia deck.
Interesting.
Yeah, we have an episode on Curia already, and we definitely talk about how it gets really funky with double Curia. It changes a lot of the math.
Yeah, even the way the timing works is like, what?
Yeah. It's certainly not something you would play with someone you're introducing the game to.
Unless you're hoping they don't keep playing,
Yeah. It's like one of
you're
your brother-in-laws you don't like.
I've been telling you won't like this game, but fine.
Sister number 4 is like,
this is great.
If there's any more brother-in-laws, no, give them the double Curia deck. Yeah.
Right.
Funny. Although, I want to, before I forget, really cool question from the chat. So there's something you get from Gambling Den that you only gain if you risk a guess, right? And that's the information of what the top card is of your deck. Does the reveal itself like weigh into your decision? I mean, I suppose there are some cards that will like take advantage of it, like book, right? Like Book of LEQ really wants to know what's on top of your deck, but I don't know, any kind of other scenarios where just the information itself kind of factors in. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I guess if you have a draw, like if you have, if you know you're going to be able to draw, maybe it could affect which house you go into. I've certainly used it for New Frontiers calls, right? Where like, okay, I saw I have an Infernus, so I'm going to New Frontiers dis.
Gotcha.
Right, and maybe the two cards aren't dis, but I don't want to miss out on the Infernus or something like that. But that is pretty rare that would be a game changer. I think, unless Book of LEQ would be the prime example where, okay, that's, you get to take 2 turns. That's pretty good.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it. It does feel rare, but it's interesting. I don't know. Right on. Cool. So we did talk about Candleholder as being a very cool double Gambling Den deck. And I think it's maybe more interesting decision than I had initially thought about whether or not to play the first one. Do you have like different considerations for when to play whether and when to play the second one than you do for the first one, or is it kind of like YOLO?
Yeah, I think I still get it wrong sometimes, but I think it feels to me like oftentimes if I have a significant lead, then probably playing the second one is pretty risky, right? Like, I don't want to. You play the second one, suddenly your opponent forges their second key off of getting it right. You know, on the first, they get 4 amber, they forge their second key, they hold you off a turn, and if you don't have the Anthony, then you're dead. So, so that can be very risky. I think that's probably the biggest situation, and that's actually where, again, being ahead, you just feel so safe. Like, oh, this is gonna. And there are certainly times where playing it means now they can't possibly hold me off because they can get me to, you know, they can get me down to 5, but my chances of getting up to 9 from that are going to be pretty good. So sometimes it could be right, but I think it can be very risky. So
do you
not a good win more card.
Do you often find yourself like actually playing the second, or is the second one typically a discard for you? Getting all your secret notes.
Candleholder, it's a most of the time.
Oh,
just
cool.
Just because I mean, we're talking about that idea of speeding the game up so the opponent's deck doesn't get to what they wanted. It's very effective at that, and then there are so many tools to keep bringing their count down. So even, if sometimes very heavy shadows decks, even especially like some of the Coda shadows, can stall out against control decks because the control deck can just not make amber for while it's building up, and so you can they have nothing to steal, so they're not slow. You build up your board and then you just control them into the ground. And I guess a really disciplined player could still do that against Gambling Den, but at least I, as the player of Candleholder, have an option to get a lot of amber now, right? Even if they're control the weaking me. Well, okay, you control the weak to me. I know what card's on the top of my deck, so I'm going to get 4, right? Whereas, yeah, so I think it just changes the game enough that other people's decks don't play the way they hoped. That's a good thing.
That's definitely an interesting like aspect of the card that I hadn't really thought about too. So it's cool, very cool.
So the only other question I had for you is when you were reading the card text earlier, you emphasized May, and
Oh yeah,
it got me thinking. If you're playing with newer players,
yeah.
you talked about sometimes maybe reminding them, or
Mm-hmm.
what's your policy with that?
So I think there's a little bit of a balance, but certainly, yeah, with a newer player, I'm going to point out, hey, this card gives you the ability to do something at the start of your turn. You should read it, right? Um, and it depends on how spiky I'm feeling, I guess. If I just say you should read it, or hey, let me know if you have any questions. Usually I'll offer, if you have questions, let me know. Um, Playing the second one also is an important point too, because I think experienced players tend to go, they see a second one hit the table, and even if they haven't ever seen that before, they go, oh, I see what just happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a good feeling for somebody to like not do it and then see you do it and be like, oh, I could have done that.
Yeah.
Crap, like that's, nobody likes that. And so yeah, I try to point it out, or I don't always, but I think the balancing part of that is like uh I think the shut up and sit down guys talk about this, like you don't want to be spoon feeding people, like you want them to have their own moments of discovery. So even just saying something like, you play the second one and just say, hey, so there are 2 of these on the table now, and just so you know, they trigger one after the other, so that way they can think about it. And some people just don't want to think about it, and okay, well then they don't need me to like spoon feed it to them, but for most people that's enough that they go, well, what is that, what are the implications of that? Oh, and I've even had people go, wait, is there any situation where I shouldn't call them, where I shouldn't just do it? And I say, none that I know of, because I don't want to, I don't know. But yeah, like yeah, probably you want to do it.
You have to kind of know like what kind of gamer you're playing with to know like
Yeah,
how much you need to tell them. Some
yeah,
gamers, maybe they're less experienced players, and they could use that extra little nudge to be like, hey,
yeah,
you should think about this. Others, definitely want to have that discovery for themselves, like you said.
Mm.
yeah,
There's not very many cards in this game though that you play that give your opponent a choice, right?
yeah. Especially before you have a choice. That's the weirdest part. Yeah,
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, so like you play it and it doesn't do anything for you until they have a chance to do something with it. That's interesting.
yeah. Hmm.
Right. So they don't get to see you do it before having to try it out first themselves. Right. It's
Right.
one of those where like I don't know, knowing the rules is better than cheating moments, sort of a thing. Like you have to
Hmm.
know this happens before the forge happens, right? And that they happen sequentially, and you don't have to choose this. Some things that are maybe not
Yeah.
necessarily obvious, but cool.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
that is the other thing that I've explicitly said to newer players
Mm-hmm.
is, hey, by the way, you should know this happens before you forge.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. No, fair.
Yeah.
Cool, cool.
We've been staring at Candleholder all night, but you have a second deck that you like with Gambling Den?
Sure. Unless I know Justin had one he wanted to talk about too, so I didn't know which
Mine's
order
not
you
as
want to do
cool.
that in. Oh, come on. So so this one's Mark's Surge of the Long Place Force. It belongs to Mark H. But um, so this is more in the category of a very good deck that also has Gambling Den.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know I don't want to speak for him too much. I know there are times where Gambling Den doesn't make sense to play in this. And so for him, he's been on a journey of, figuring out when is the right time, when is not, and getting a feel for that. But it does win games sometimes, right? If you can um, if you can use the tools in the deck, get an advantage. 27 expected amber is already pretty high,
Mhm.
and then you get into those right moments. And I know he more than I have, he's gotten into situations where he's like, well, I guess the rules changed and you can't do this now, but where he like took the tide to gain chains to not draw,
Yep.
so
I'm
that he
glad you
could
mentioned
know
that.
what he was
Yeah.
going to call. Yeah.
Hmm.
So TCO will
Yeah.
let you do it. You are not allowed to do it per the
Yeah.
rules currently. Yeah. Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
don't have, if there's not a Dark Tidings deck in the game,
Mhm.
neither player
Right.
is allowed to take the chain. So, yeah, that's worth noting. That's a good point too, because there've been a lot of times that I've been playing on TCO with maybe against Gambling Den. I'm like, oh man, I really wish I could just take the tide right now. But even though it lets you, you should not. So,
Hmm.
I guess it's more of a PSA for people.
Yeah. Well, do you
Players.
want to just explain really quick why taking the tide would be advantageous potentially here?
I'll take a stab at it. You can tell me which parts I get wrong. But when you take the tide, obviously you draw fewer cards, and so if you know what's on top of your deck and you don't want to draw an extra card, you want to keep that there next turn. It actually allows you to play a card that turn without drawing an extra card, and so next turn you get those guaranteed too.
Yeah. Bingo. And I think theoretically, and this always rubbed me the wrong way, theoretically, you can raise the tide as many times. You can use that Omni ability even if the tide's already high for you. So theoretically, you could gain 24 chains if you wanted, which just that always seemed broken to me, and I'm glad. I think the ruling they made that you can't do it if there's no DT deck in makes sense, um, but yeah, but in some cases that is an option, and Mark H is definitely he's played around with that as an option a little more than I have.
Mm.
What I like here is I'm looking for cards that may synergize with the Gambling Den here, and I could see the Neurosiphon actually having a cool interaction with it, where if your opponent has like 3 or 4 amber and you're at 1 or 2,
Hmm.
you definitely are going to want to gamble, because if you have a Neurosiphon that you're planning on playing, because if you're right, then you gain 2, great, and if you're wrong, you lose those 2, but you actually get to steal 1 right back. So
Right.
um, it's lessens the blow a bit if you do get it wrong.
Right, and there are a lot of situations where that net outcome of you and your opponent each losing one is pretty okay with you, especially again if you're sitting on pretty high amber generation in general, then slowing both of you down probably hurts your opponent more than it hurts you.
Hmm. Interesting. That's a cool interaction as well.
Hmm.
Are there any other
Yeah,
cards in
good eye.
either this one or Candle Holder that kind of have a weird interaction with it?
Let me see. So, um, I mean, Infernus is just good, and it helps. It helps mitigate the amber that your opponent's probably generating. Um,
I'm looking for
mm,
Vandalize, but I don't see Vandalize in
Well,
either of these decks.
as you say in Furnace too, I mean, there's always an interesting decision. Like you may want to be careful to balance the houses that you're pulling from their deck, lest you, I don't know, leave them with a 2-house deck and better gambles potentially, or even consider, you know,
right.
I don't know, if you're playing a deck that has heavy Infernus recursion. I mean, maybe you are angling towards putting yourself in a 2-house situation and having more positive EV gambles, perhaps. But I don't know.
Hmm.
It's probably an outside consideration, but it's cool. Yeah.
Hmm. I will say, like, so some cards that occasionally have really interesting interactions are things like the Inspector. Let me see what else in here could have a similar interaction.
Forcing them to
Um,
draw a card.
yeah, exactly. So you kind of, if your opponent is on 6 and you knock them down to 5, then again, except for like taking the tide or something, they don't, they can't now choose not to draw. So you've removed that option, which is an additional benefit to what's already a pretty good card. Um,
On
The
the flip
tempting
side, though,
offers,
I was
yeah,
just going to say, yeah.
go for it.
Yeah, that's kind of the opposite, right? Like each of these decks that you have here, each have two tempting offers. So if you're bouncing a creature from a house that they are not going to go back into, you don't expect them to, normally that's a good form of disruption. But in this case, it might actually help them not draw an extra card, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yep. Uh, Rad Penny in Candleholder is a little interesting, and that's another case where I actually think in-person play is much easier here. Uh, you can end up in a situation on TCO where like you think you know it's on top of your deck, your opponent kills your Rad Penny, and suddenly there's a totally different card on top of your deck, and not a lot of cues to you that this happened. Whereas in person, you have to physically shuffle. You're more likely to remember. Oh yeah, I've still forgotten, but you're more likely to remember. Oh yeah, I shuffled. There's something different there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The lethos can be interesting too because sometimes you just go through, just depending on how things go, right? It can speed up the process of having a much smaller deck, which means it sometimes can be easier to predict what's on top.
This is, I mean, obviously a very sassy deck. It looks very strong and well-rounded. I don't know if I've played against it before, perhaps, but I don't know. I'm almost now wondering if playing the Gambling Den is better when you're behind, when you're kind of less favored in the matchup in general, as a general rule. So I'd be curious how often it nets out, because I'm not that there aren't better decks out there, but I imagine that this matches up pretty well with lots of things. So I wonder what the play versus discard rate on Gambling Den is for this. But
I think the play rate is pretty high. I would have to double check with Mark, but I know, yeah, I do know this deck performs really well. I know if I have to bet on it versus Candleholder, I'll bet on Surge.
okay.
I think it is stronger, and I think Surge is in a category of no auto losses. I don't think there are any decks out there that Surge automatically loses to.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I do think that's true I think there are decks that Candleholder will automatically lose.
Interesting. Ooh,
Like Quixel Stone it doesn't like.
Did you hear that quick draw? We're gonna do the Surge Heart of the Forest matchup after this.
Yeah, I noticed that it does have the borrow, which is obviously very useful, but there's some artifacts like Heart that might not help you out at all there.
Yeah, for sure.
But cool. Tempting offers for days. Make them get those keys.
That's
yeah.
That's actually. Oh yeah, I was getting it mixed up. That's where the occasionally in Candleholder you can lift an artifact with Snudge if you really need to, and occasionally you can do the dream of Infernus Snudge Infernus, but it's pretty rare.
Yeah, Snudge is a witch essentially.
Yeah,
Total
no
Snudge. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, suffer not the Snudge to live. Yeah.
Exactly.
Another card, actually, when we started talking about how it's better to have Amber at the beginning of your turn than at the end of your turn, Fandangle came to mind. No Untamed here, no Fandangle, but I could see Gambling Den being very strong with Fandangle.
Yes, and a huge mistake to play against Fandangle too. Yeah.
Yeah, you sound like saying that as someone with experience doing that.
Yeah. Yes, I lost. Well, that same event where I looked at my deck on camera, I lost in the finals against Logan Composer playing Kill a Snake, which I'm sure you've seen Kill a Snake. I mean that's a very 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 good deck, and I hope I'm remembering it right that it uses Fandangle quite well. And I had one game where I think I maybe could have won if I had not played the Gambling Dens. Yeah, it was just clearly the wrong move against that deck.
I don't know this deck. I'm trying to find it.
Oh, when you see it, you will.
Yeah, I got it pulled up over here. I'll drop it in the chat.
Wow, did it take I guess it took took a SAS dive, but it's a very very good deck.
19 pips, yeah. Looks like an AVR jank deck there, less than 3 hammer control.
Less than 3 hammer control.
Yes,
27.
he did. I had him on my team, and he did use it that week. Yes.
Yep, there you go.
And it was, yeah, I feel like we owe whoever was on the other end of that an apology because, yeah,
that's pretty brutal.
On the other end of every jank format suggestion, somebody's got like, oh, this deck's awesome, but just needs the
yes,
the place to shine.
Yeah, that's if we're being honest, that's why I don't particularly like the jank formats in general. I'm not a fan of Keyforge formats that are kind of constructed around a certain attribute or a statistic with the decks. Not that there's anything nefarious happening with the choices made for these in AVR.
Yeah.
The more limitations you introduce into Keyforge, the more abuse there is. And it's kind of related to why I don't like Alliance. Like you talk about, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but like you introduce a restricted list, something else is going to be at the top of the power curve there. And it's just a matter of finding what that is. And so when you add restrictions, maybe it breeds creativity, maybe it allows you to play certain things that you wouldn't have before, but it lets you take advantage of things that you couldn't previously take advantage of.
Yeah, and I actually was gonna say I enjoy jank, but I don't disagree with you. I think it just doesn't bother me in the same way. But I think the jank kind of that kind of thing in, let's say, like is this what you would call a box league? Like we each open a display and then we're gonna play a series of games with different constraints, right? Okay, well that forces us to try out different things, right? So, but we have a very limited pool. Part of the problem is when everybody has, when me with 700 decks am like, you're kind of a collector, right? Compared to a lot of people out there. And I think same with Alliance. In my opinion, Sealed Alliance is great because you can do broken things, but you can't do the insane broken things that you can do in Alliance Standard. Yeah. I said it right.
No, I would agree with that. Sealed Alliance to me is tolerable. I think it's a slight improvement on like regular Sealed. I don't feel super strongly about either one. It's probably better. It's probably more fair if you have a Sealed Alliance. If you have like a bigger event, the old primes that used to happen were often like 3 decks sealed, and if you could make those alliances, it's probably a bit more balanced as far as the deck strength goes.
That's an opinion.
Yeah, that's an opinion. Yeah, there you go. I just want to shout out Ketzer again with a good comment. Gambling Den makes Bubbles sad. I love Bubbles as a card. It's like a super strong card, but against Gambling Den, it's just giving them 2 amber.
It's true.
Bubble wrap this gift. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. This is about the time of the show normally when we get to a game.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys? Is there anything else you wanted to touch on, AV8R here?
Let me read through what we said before really quick. Make sure I didn't miss anything.
And while you're doing that, I'll dance for a moment and say that I do enjoy the jank formats. I love the chaos, and I don't mind so much that, like, okay, hobo. So you've got the Key of Darkness deck. That's really good. We'll humor you and have the Key of Darkness format. But I don't know. It's fun to mix it up for a league setting. But yeah, there's definitely some monsters hanging out at the top of the jank lineups. Yeah.
So so the one other thing that I wanted to get to really quick is when I was at Keyforge Celebration, which I was very grateful to be at, and what a great time. I during sealed play played with a with a guy who we played, and then we were talking about Unchained, and he said, "Well, I got this Unchained deck. It's horrible, but it has 3 copies of Gambling Den. How silly is that?" And I was like, I will give you money for that right now. And he said, yeah. So I acquired it and gifted it to Mark H. So unfortunately, Unchained decks are not scannable at all. So I cannot send you the link to it, but it has 2 Gambling Dens and Shadows and 1 in Logos, and it's amazing. And I don't think it's particularly good, but it's super, super fun. So, yeah.
Very cool. Good story.
If we get
on a related note, I got Embermedes was generous enough to trade me one of his Winds of Exchange decks that he got at Celebration. It was a double Whirlpool, and the Whirlpool was actually pretty terrible in the deck, but it's super cool to have. I'm so excited about it. Really thankful that he was willing to part with it with a reasonable trade for both of us. So, yeah, I didn't go to Celebration, but I managed to come out of it with a pretty cool deck myself.
Well done. That's two Whirlpool in it's a standard. It's not an Unchained.
No, it's a Winds of Exchange. Yeah, regular. So
wow.
That will be scannable. I think it's
Amazing.
my 3rd double Whirlpool deck I have, maybe 2nd. Wow. I don't know if you know this, but I like Whirlpool.
I didn't know how much you like Whirlpool. That's awesome.
I think I'm up to 28 copies now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And sorry, how many of those are playable?
Probably like 3 or 4.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I actually was going to guess higher because there's just weird stuff that happens, but
yeah, no, it's totally weird. I think we've done an episode on it already, haven't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've done Whirlpool.
See? Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I talk about it every week.
Yeah.
So for me, it's hard to tell. Like, have we not, JT?
I think we. I'm gonna have to check the archives now.
Well, the too long didn't read on Whirlpool decks, I think, is that so many Whirlpool decks rely on it, and if you lose the Whirlpool or you don't find it, it falls apart. Yeah. And so it's very hard to find a good Whirlpool deck or even a good deck with Whirlpool in it, as we've made that distinction earlier. So it's super strong when it sticks, but it doesn't always.
Yeah. I mean, I think some of that is hazard of being in Dark Tidings. That I think the uncontroversial opinion is that Dark Tidings is lower on the power curve. So when you're talking about a rare in a set that struggles a little more, that's tough. But I'm hoping that WoW makes up for that and we get a lot more strong Whirlpool decks because it is a super fun card.
For sure. And I'm excited for Whirlpool plus Quixelstone, which are both in Winds of Exchange. Was I playing against you or one of your teammates in that match? It was a swindle team event match where
I do remember that, but I don't think I was playing. I don't think it would have been me. It would have been either Mark or Donut Stead because I think they both brought Quixel decks.
And I brought a Whirlpool, and it was in the reversal game for the Moirai, and it was something that I had never thought about before, even though I played a lot of Whirlpool. And they played out the Quixel, and then I played out the Whirlpool, and we passed back a Cornus and Octavia the entire game that had about 10 amber on it, and no one was allowed to play a creature. And the Whirlpool deck had lots of hard artifact control in the Mollymocks, but was literally not allowed to play them.
That's the problem with Mollymawk.
The weirdest game I've ever played, probably.
That's funny, but those are the best. The best games once you're through them, right?
Yeah, it was very memorable for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Are we turning this into a Whirlpool episode?
We have some Whirlpool fans in the chat as well. Yeah, let's shift gears, play our game. I'm gonna do the old where you find us spiel, So working on this. So let me know what you think. I don't know. So yeah, sloppy lab work. I'm starting over. I'm gonna cut this out and then bottom of the Beaker is recorded live in front of an audience of ducks and humans every week, Tuesday nights typically. at 9:30 Eastern. You can find archives of our past shows and streams over at YouTube. Search for @SloppyLabWork. You'll find us there. And for the very best content, 3,457 times distilled and then scraped from the bottom of the beaker. Search for Sloppy Labwork bottom of the beaker, and your podcatcher of choice will be there. And I guess for the folks who are getting off this train at the last audio stop, do you have anything you'd like to say to them? Quick draw.
Just stay sloppy.
Stay sloppy indeed. And special thanks to AV8R for joining us on this one. We're going to stick around now, play some games. Let's just say your farewells to the audio folks, AV8R 2.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and this was great.
Right on. And for all those sticking around for the After Dark edition of Bottom of the Beaker, we're going to hop on over to TCO and play us a game. And I suppose we got to play us some Gambling Den. How should we do teams here, and what deck should we play? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we always like to go with the hand and brain, so I think we're going to do that. JT and I will display the hand and brain. AV8R, you can play your deck of choice, I think, and then we've talked about Surge and we've talked about Candleholder tonight. Is it a fair enough matchup we could play?
Yeah, I think it is actually quite a good. It's a really fun matchup. So, and if we get really lucky, then we get 3 Gambling Dens on the board, and who won't enjoy that? So I can load up Surge, and that way you guys can play the deck that Justin's a little more familiar with, if that works.
Sure.
Yeah. Justin, do you want to play with the hand or the brain?
I'll be the hand unless you want to do it just for logistical.
Logistic
ease.
reasons is good. I'll play as the brain, and then I think this is normally the brain will just choose the house, but now we have a gambling den involved. I feel like the brain should probably choose whether or not to gamble, and then have the hand choose which house. How does that sound?
Ooh, interesting. Because the den decision is made before houses are called, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that makes sense. I'm gonna start up a game. It's going to be in the casual queue. Password sloppy, and I am going to load up. We said Candleholder. This will be great because I'll get all the notes for how I'm being a poor testing partner with this deck.
Oh, we'll see. I'm looking forward to Mark telling me what I miss on Surge too. So
it's a good learning experience for everyone.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so obviously, AV8R, this would be a good time to turn off the Twitch stream so you don't see JT's hands.
Oh, great call.
Not that we don't trust you.
We go by honor system here.
The old look at the last card in my deck IRL over there. All right. Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Best of luck. Good luck. Have fun.
Good luck.
Throw it there for the old posterity.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll say the brain will make mulliganing decisions too.
Yeah, that's a definite mulligan right there for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just tell you guys because I am going to mull, but I have 4 Shadows cards and 3 discards, which is nice, but 2 Bonithings and an opening hand is actually not great.
Yeah.
Less than ideal.
I would have been upset if you said that you mulligan back a gambling deck.
And this kind of paid off. Open with the Invidious.
Well.
All right, Star Alliance.
Lord Invidious, huh? Awkward. Star Alliance we go. I'm going to play this piece of chord, and a Xeno trading, and discard the Sensor Chief Garcia. Okay. We'll see.
All
Checks
right.
out to me.
Okay, well, then there's less value for me going this. Logos is going to let me burn through some cards.
Double Lethalogica. Cool.
Yeah, and actually did not discard anything with them, so.
Runner. Nice.
Yeah, 5 cards. I mean, the Lethos, I don't know if they count, but 5 cards isn't bad.
Not bad.
All right. I'll say Dis here.
Dis it is. At your pleasure. Ooh, tricky. Let's play this Dark Minion. Smash it. Put a damage there. Maybe that was poor. I am going to play out this Infernus and grab your Neuroscython and a Lethalogica. Neuroscython and Lethalogica. And I think I am also going to play out the Stirring Grave to grab Garcia. Tuck that in archives.
Okay, so you played one, two,
uncomfortable
3
with
cards.
those decisions.
No, I really like the Dark Minion play. Totally agree with the Dark Minion play.
Nice.
I was hoping you'd do that.
I guess the other option too was I just ping Lord Invidious and say, hey, you can have Infernus or the Dark Minion. Probably. Well,
yeah,
I would have purged
iffy.
the second Leth.
Purchase the other Leth.
Yeah.
Respectable.
All right, I'm gonna go Dis. We're going to mark. So you'll be going Dis again. Play out a Dexus. Reap with the Invidious to take your Infernus. And then Pain Reaction says deal 2 damage to an enemy creature, and there aren't any, so I just get the pip. And that's check at 6.
That it is.
Well, I don't think I can do anything for you this turn. You're on your own here.
I still need you to make the call.
All right, I'll go
the call.
Go Dis.
Go Dis. Gonna pass on taking the archives. And yeah, I think we're gonna play this Gateway and get some chains. Yeah.
I might have held the Gateway.
Might have held the Gateway.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I can see a case for it. I can definitely see a case for it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Yeah. I don't want to give too much away yet, but I think I'd have held it there. And I don't know if it would have been right or not, but maybe discarded it would have been tough. I don't know.
You're not going to give away much, because I get to see your hand.
Okay. I would have probably held the Gateway, maybe discarded it to set up the tempting offer on your Infernus.
Clever.
That's why I was okay with the Dark Minion play killing itself, because if he ends up taking the Infernus, you're eventually going to draw a tempting offer, which would have been pretty sweet on it.
That's pretty cool. I did not think about that.
It's a little slow, right? Because you have to tempting. It's still good, I think. But you have to tempting offer on your Shadow's turn, and then, but I think still quite good.
So you get to go Dis. You get 3 Reaps and maybe a play. I guess so, because Infernus will knock you down 2 eventually. You're going up 3 there. Yeah.
It's tough.
So
Plus the gateway is like the only, well, maybe valuable. Interesting.
And see, this is where maybe I should hold, but I'm not. So there.
So you ended up playing 4 shadows that turn. If your board had been kept there without the gateway, would you just gone straight back into dis?
Probably so. Well, I'll just say I had 3 discards in hand, so it probably would have been worth it.
Yeah.
Reap for 3, player discard 3. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Oh, I gotta pick a house here.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go shadows here.
All right, shadows it is. Only one mark of dis, and it's been played. Okay. No on the archives. Gonna play this mutant cut purse. And we've played pain reaction arrow as well already. Okay, I'm gonna ping the old bow. I am going to send this Daimo Thief back to hand, capture 1 onto my cut purse, and another with Opportunist. So 4 shadows cards played there, yeah. Yeah. Check at 6.
So I'm looking for that way to keep you from forging, and I think I have it. So we'll go dis. Play Imp Spectre. Implosion.
Oof, nice. Implosion with a capture pip. Nice.
Yeah. So that keeps you from the forge, and then 3 discards in my discard. I think justifies a Grim Reminder. And discard Gateway.
Cool.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, I'll purge the Anthony. That's a good hit.
It's a good hit.
Yeah, that is a good hit for sure.
And archives.
Where are these gambling dens?
And Zoc's off to the stream. Thanks, Zoc. Enjoy the stream. Let's see if y'all are in charge of reminding me to raid him when we're done. So we'll see if we can.
Yeah.
Do that.
Well, this is not a great situation here. I guess I'm gonna say Starlines.
Star Alliance. And do we want the archives? So we have an Imp Spectre, a Lord Invidious, and a Dexus in archives for AV8R.
Guess that puts you in a difficult position with regard to the Contrino Flex, whether to play or hold it, huh?
You know, it kind of does.
Situations like this, I am glad I am not the hand.
I am going to take my archives. I am going to play the Censor Chief and the Anthony, and I am going to hold that Flex. Yeah. I see the disapproving look on Quickdraw's face.
No, I'm just like I said. I'm happy that I didn't have to make that decision.
Yeah.
I think it's a good decision, though. You're pretty much out of creature control since the gateway's been used.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's.
I would have been
I think that's
super
probably the
tempted
right
to
thing.
go shadows there, I think.
Yeah, I've just been worried about the efficiency of this game,
Mhm.
especially with that Inspector,
Hmm.
with some disruption there. Just want to try to draw more cards.
Maybe AV8R is going to forget and attack us at some point.
Nothing to forget. Nothing to see here on this side of the board.
Yeah.
All right, let's go shadows. No archives. Get a reap. It's
Dynamo Thief's back.
tempting offer is kind of sad. Maybe better to discard, but I'm doing it. And then that's gonna die eventually, but
Boo.
oh well. No bow.
All right. Can I see what's in your deck?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's go shadows here.
Shadows it is. I'm going to play this Miasma Bomb and a Rad Penny. Let's try this check thing again.
Third time's a charm.
Third time.
Bad news.
Bad news, but for who?
But I want to know.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, let's get the Invidious back. And then drop Infernus.
Rude.
So, yeah. That Miasma Bomb, though, that's pretty big. Obviously, I'm not playing Borrow this turn, but if I don't get to borrow it, then it could be a pretty big tempo swing there.
Thanks for the reminder there.
Yeah, no problem. I think I kind of have to get your Infernus here, actually, and then I'll also take Xeno Training. Takes you off check, but Rot Grub can also do that. Drop Inspector and Dexus.
Oof.
So if you play a creature on your right flank, you lose an amber.
Very nice.
All right.
Nice.
Very nice.
Don't love the situation. Just gonna say it. All right, let's go Star Alliance again.
Hey, Murph. Welcome. Ooh, tricky.
You can tell me now if I made the wrong call.
I don't know that you made the wrong call. I think it was a lot of tough decisions to be made. Yeah. Oh, I can click that. That's a thing I can do. All right, so this is a reap. I am going to play this Flux. I'm super, super tempted. Super tempted to hit this Anthony. Is it worth getting that rock grub? I'll get the rad penny and the 5. So the 1s and the 5s. And then play out Garcia. Yeah. I think there was a good case to be made for hitting the Anthony there, though. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because I wouldn't forge because of the Garcia.
Because of the Garcia, right?
Yeah, I still would have taken out the rock grub too. It's a bummer to not check though as well.
Yeah.
But you had to take out the 5s. I don't think you could leave Invidious on the board.
No, I wouldn't want to leave Invidious. And let's see, the 2s hits the thief. So I guess still get to 6, but then, yeah, I would be checking. And then purging a random card. Interesting.
Time to go Logos. Play Eclectic. Use the Fish and Bloom before. Do you have a special horn to play when I play Sloppy Lab Work?
Quick Draw does this this vocalization thing. Yeah.
Oh.
I do not.
not on demand, apparently.
No. The only thing I can think of with playing Sloppy Lab Work on stream is the one time that JT decided to play an Infernus and purged 2 of my Sloppy Lab Works. I've not forgiven him yet.
Yeah.
I made a. It feels weird to discard a
borrow? Yeah, super weird, right?
No, a Dino Thief is it? Yeah, Dino Thief. But I played the Eclectic first so that I could archive intelligently with the Sloppy Lab Work.
Like your style. I like your style.
So, Discombobulator, get an extra draw.
Oh,
pretty good deal.
Whew. I'm actually pretty happy about that daughter right now.
Really?
Yeah. Let's go Shadows here.
Uh-oh.
So this is interesting. We are going to go Shadows. Yeah. We dodged a bullet with this bomb. We knew the borrow was there the whole time. You know?
Totally knew.
Yeah. Playing our gambling den. And...
Oh, yeah, I see.
I was watching your count in your deck, and you kept playing
Math.
cards. And I was like, he's going to draw all of it. Please draw all of it.
Math. I should kill the daughter with this mug. I should.
Or for our British friends, maths.
The maths are hard. Dimo Thief, do I care about you? I'm not going to have many opportunities left to take out this thief with the Discombobulator too. There are some good options to take out. A few damage pips coming. You know what? I'm going to mug the daughter. Yeah. We'll see if I regret it.
Did you consider mugging Anthony?
I did. That was what I was between, Anthony and daughter. I very quickly considered the Dimo Thief. But yeah, I was between Anthony and daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably would have done the Anthony.
The Anthony.
Yeah, just
Makes
because I feel
sense.
like we're behind, and I just kind of want to make as much money as I can.
It is not a bad thought. It is not a bad thought.
All right. Well,
Gambling den. Gambling
as my former governor once said, make it spicy.
Make it spicy. Let's go.
Yes.
All right, quick draw. Get to the chopper. Let's go.
Have to.
Can I see your deck during this turn so I can make a quicker decision?
Is untamed, clearly. The sneaky
Clearly
maverick.
not a good option.
Yeah.
That's pretty rough right there.
Yeah. It's kind of rough.
No, I mean, it's always borrowing the gambling den.
What a jerk. Gambling den advantage on the gambling den episode.
I actually, so this is a little weird, but I think this is clearly the right choice. Give you the amber, but cycle.
Nice.
And mole doesn't do much.
Mole, fun. So it's funny. I'm now double kicking myself for not mugging the Anthony. But interesting.
All right. I'm going to say yes to the gambling den.
Let's go.
We just talked about this. There's two of them, so I have no choice. But I'm pretending that I do.
All right. You get the honors of the house call. Which house?
No, the house call is yours, right?
Is it mine?
As the hand? Yeah, I think the brain chooses whether or not to gamble.
Okay, we'll go with that.
And
we'll go with that.
The house chooses the hand.
Okay, let's go. It's gotta be this. No, New Frontiers.
Okay, I'm gonna, as the brain, I will say that you should use the second gambling den.
Yeah. Star Alliance. Okay, woo, we got it.
All right, we did it.
Amazing.
Red
okay. I'm pretty thankful that you did pop that piece of cord. I feel like that is helping us out here, kind of like make a little bit of a comeback. I don't know if it's going to be enough though.
I may have forgotten.
You didn't see the bottom of the Beaker episode on piece of cord then.
Piece of cord.
Where's the creature control in this deck, man?
Right. Should have held that gateway.
It's in your discard pile.
Yeah, that's correct. That is, thank you, sir. I found it.
I try to be helpful.
Man, what a situation that is. I'm sorry. Go dis.
Going dis. Let's do this dis. Okay. Ooh, they have no discard pile, huh?
I know. It's such a bummer.
Pretty bummed about it.
And you were happy about my daughter before.
I know.
Well, it worked out for one turn. We could have gone to dis the previous turn, but I thought that the gambling den and what was the other card? The pop in the miasma bomb I thought was too important.
Okay. Tell me. Wait, before you confirm, can you tell me which cards you select?
And then
can I guess?
I will let you know when I've done selecting, and then I'll also tell you my thought process after you tell me what you
Okay.
would choose. It is a tough one though. There are some interesting options. Okay, I have made my selections.
Okay. Tempting offer mug.
Ooh, interesting. I went mug and stirring grave.
Okay.
And the reason I went for stirring grave was I thought it was maybe a little slower than I was gonna have time to, but but I can see the value of it too. Tempting offer, I decided not to go for only because on a potential redraw, if I get a Shadows hand with steel, I want to be able to deal with the discombobulator as well. But I also briefly considered the Peace Accord just because I can't see myself playing it at this point. But I don't know. I honestly don't even know if we're getting to redraw territory. But yeah.
That's kind of what I thought too. Is that I don't think you're going to draw another 14 cards this game, and just go for the pips. And I don't really think it makes a huge difference which pips.
Okay. So we got those. I guess I could have. I guess I didn't do it, but could have also played the Stirring Grave first. I'm gonna grab the Garcia, put that away in archives, and I think I'm gonna discard this Grim Reminder. Yep. Which I feel bad about, but I'm doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was right. There, it's the ideal would have been to kill the Anthony.
Yeah, and that was why I was kicking myself for not having mugged it, because I could have fought into a 4 here. Womp womp womp.
You can't kill it. You can't kill it.
Can't do it.
We had that turn early on when we had both Anthonys, and then one of them got purged. And I think that really, would you agree, Aviator, that kind of like sets the deck back when you get both the Anthonys early and one of them is just booted?
Yeah, it's tough. Yep. And you know, that's the danger when you're playing a deck with 3.7 efficiency, right? Is you can more easily end up in that situation. So that would be one where I guess, you know, you could say, and I'm going to gamble for Dis here, and did get it, so we're going to do that again. But you know, you can get into it. Yeah, this is what happens when you have 2 gambling dens on the table. So, yeah, when you get into a situation where you didn't draw things in the right order, like I think that did happen to you guys. From a competitive standpoint, I think the thing you have to recognize is, you know, okay, well, you brought a deck that has low efficiency, so you're more likely to end up in this situation, and that's that happens.
So I mean, kind of going back to our conversation way earlier on in the discussion, you would say that this was all luck, and that's why we're losing. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I would say. I mean, I would say that draw order was really tough. I mean, the ideal would be to have your gambling dens and your Anthony swapped in the deck order here, right? But again, that is a function of if you bring a lower F deck, then these things will happen. So I have no shadows in hand, but it feels hard to justify not stealing one and reaping thrice.
Oof. So we got +4 coming on the next turn too.
Yeah, exactly.
Oof. Nicely done. Let's see what we can do here.
Yeah, we'll go. We're gonna gamble for sure.
Do you want to use our den or Aviator's den first?
Let's start with Aviator's den. Well,
they're
technically
both mine now.
I was just gonna say they're both Aviators for many reasons, not just the borrow.
Okay, well, I should say Shadows here. I'm gonna say Shadows. Oh no!
Less than ideal.
Less than ideal.
We're gonna go with the second one.
All right. And that was a snudge. I'm going to say dis. All right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So let's go Star Alliance here.
Star Alliance, taking the archives. I'm going to play this New Frontiers. Get some discards, although, I mean, yeah. Let's make sure we get a hit so we look good on the walk-off. Ooh, Val and Bo. Okay.
That's not looking good, actually.
Those ones are just for show. Okay, so I'm gonna toss.
Yeah, early Val would have been a game changer too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it would have been tough because you had the Invidious early, and so
Yeah,
we couldn't just put her out there
it's true.
unless we had some kind of protection for her. But
That is true. Could have alternated leaders.
Mars.
Yeah, can't do it. So
nice
game.
Nicely done.
Yeah, GG guys.
Well played. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm glad you didn't beat us fast enough that we didn't get to see any gambling dens. They finally came out.
Yeah.
And we drew the next one. Nice too. Mm-hmm.
I did warn you my money would be on Surge, and I think that higher efficiency and getting to play through faster is pretty good value here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean Surge is no slouch. I mean neither is Candleholder certainly. So super fun game, and I just want you to know too that it's kind of a tradition that we allow the guest to win the game.
Oh.
All you have to do is play against me, and you've got pretty good chances for a win.
That has not been my experience outside of this podcast with either of you guys.
Yeah. Something happens on this stream when I just can't win. So I like to think that I can win outside of this stream. But
yeah,
when all the lights are on and everyone's watching, something happens. I don't know.
What are you gonna do? Nicely done.
I've seen it. Well, yeah, great game, guys.
Yeah, good game.
This was super fun. I think we'll probably wrap it up there, everybody. I'm gonna send folks on over to DataForge stream if you're hanging out here. Yeah, don't go away or head on over there yourselves if you're still with us. Shots fired in the chat. Quick draw.
I got nothing. Yeah, I mean, seems legit to me.
He's stand by it. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Big thanks again to AV8R for joining us. This was a ton of fun to have you on. Pleasure to play and chat Gambling Den with you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Right on. So it's probably going to take me, a minute or two to remember how to actually do a raid. So, okay, there we go. It's coming. Cool. All right. Thanks, folks. We'll see you around the Sloppy Lab. Bye.